What's up, guys, and welcome to today's video. So, broadheads, it's a pretty overwhelming subject in the world of bow hunting. And, everybody wants to go through, fixed blades, mechanicals, 2 inch, inch and a quarter, rage, sever, G5. There's just a bunch of broadheads, and it gets pretty overwhelming over time. And I've taken the liberty over the past how many ever years that I've been bow hunting the tribe, in the last 4 years, to really hone in and try to figure out which is the best broadhead for me personally. So this is an unsponsored review, and I want to get into why the G5 dead meat has fastly became my favorite broadheads for everything. So let's get into the 1 year review of the G5 dead meat. So let's go over the aesthetics of the G5 dead meat. Just a couple things that really stuck out to me. So the ferrule, which is the center point of your broadhead that your blade's attached to. This is a really thick ferrule, and it has a chisel tip on it that's pretty sharp. So your ferrule's really thick. That stood out to me as it is going to be very sturdy, and it's going to be able to punch through bone very good. The other thing is the broadhead profile itself. It's a sleek broadhead profile, especially whenever you're shooting longer range. You're running that scope housing down pretty low, so I don't want to have any contact with my scope housing and my broadheads because just bad things can happen. So this broadhead is really sleek, really low profile, so whenever I go to shoot longer range, I don't have to worry about it hitting nothing. Also, indexing broadheads. Some people want, so if you get the Schwacker or whatever, I index my blades horizontally like this. With this broadhead, it doesn't matter whichever way I index it. I've shot it with the practice head and everything else, and it flies the same. It's got the same shape with the practice head as it does the broadhead, and that's what just a few key points of why I really like about it. Also, with this broadhead, it is 3 blades. So the broadhead is a little bit smaller cut. Most people, when they think about broadheads, they think about the 2-inch cut, and you're getting a slice. So with most 2-inch cut 2-blade broadheads, it's like a knife slice. 2-inch knife slice still works, they work good, but the thing about the G5 dead meat is, with it being a 3-blade, you got a little bit smaller cut. I think it's like an 1 3/4 cut on it versus a 2-inch cut. But it's a hole. So it's not necessarily a knife slice, it's punching a hole in these animals and going through my Kentucky deer, my Indiana deer, and my Ohio deer. Every one of them deer, it punched a hole about yay big around in every one of them deer. So, and they didn't go far, and we'll get into that in the video. But the blades on this, what I like is they're a thicker blade, and they're short and stout. They're not really long. Now, they have the mega meats, and the mega meats have longer blades. I'm a fan for the mega meats on turkeys, not too much of a fan on deer, just because the blades are so long and they're a little bit thinner, it makes them brittle. These blades here, I have never had any issues with these blades going through deer on anything, and I've actually shot and they've blown through and went into the dirt, and they went in and pulled the arrow out, the blades were still good, and they were actually still sharp. This is actually one of the broadheads that done it. So I really like the locking mechanism too. I don't like the fact of having bands and stuff like that you have to replace. These have got the little knurls on them, and they got a little catch end right here it's got 2 balls on the inside, and they pinch this blade in. It's a really tight, good locking mechanism. Whenever it enters the deer, it is a backwards opening broadhead, so it's not like a cam over where it has to, like a hatchet open where it's got to sit there and enter first and then do that. It enters in, and you're going to get a good entrance hole with this broadhead. You're not going to get a small entrance hole. So if you don't happen to get an exit with this broadhead, you're still going to get a good entrance hole, and it's going to be a hole, like I said. So going into the first deer, so my Kentucky buck, I was hunting in September. I had a buck come in on me, one of the bucks that I was hunting. He was 40 yards away. So he was facing me and quartered to me really hard, and I had to put it just as hugged the shoulder as tight as I could. Made the shot, and on recovery, I have a slight hint of color blindness, and sadly the colors that it is green, red, and orange. They kind of blend in for me. And I've always been on blood trails having to walk slower to find blood and wipe my finger over it. But with this broadhead, it entered in the buck, and my arrow is 26 inches. My arrow's 26 inches. So it buried fletchings deep. This broadhead was perfectly fine after the blood trail. The deer run 100 yards, and I watched him tip over. And when I mean run, he literally ran 100 yards, he stopped, he walked a little bit, and walked in a circle, and then fell over dead. The buck passed away, expired within 30 seconds. That's it. He was done after 30 seconds. It went in fletchings deep at an angle like this. The broadhead itself was right in front of his back hip, and the fletchings were buried up right there behind his shoulder. The blood trail was gruesome. It would look like you just, literally when you hear about red paint, it looked like you took red paint on a brush and just slung it, dipped it in and slung it over everything, all the beans. And he expired really quickly. The arrow went right behind my pin. It was a quiet broadhead. He didn't know what hit him, and that was him looking at me. And anytime you shoot a deer looking at you, and if they hear an arrow, they're gonna spin and whirl, whatever. He didn't hear it. He didn't know what was coming. And like I said, the blades were perfectly fine. Nothing was wrong with that broadhead. When I pulled it out, I could use it again. So going into my Indiana deer, now this one is what really impressed me. This shot really impressed me, and the broadheads impressed me on this one, is on my Indiana deer. So he come in and he come around on my right-hand side. He was at 5 yards. So I shot him at a very steep angle, right behind the shoulder, and it was a complete pass-through. The arrow blew through him and stuck in the dirt probably 2 inches into the dirt behind him. That broadhead, when it entered, it didn't hit any ribs or anything, but on the exit, his elbow, it exited on his elbow and broke his elbow in half. Now, when it broke his elbow in half, it did bend one of the blades on his elbow. That was a really hard bone. It just kind of warped it just a little bit. It didn't snap it or nothing. It was already on the exit, so it didn't matter that much. But it buried into the dirt. What was really impressive was the buck only went 30 yards. Literally 30 yards from where I shot him, and expired. The deer was dead in 5 seconds. Literally 5 seconds, he was done. Same thing with the blood trail. It looked like you just took red paint and just slung it everywhere. He had a hole in him about like that on either side of him, and it was an easy recovery, and it was one of the most shocking, like watching deer die that quick was insane. Now we get into my Ohio deer. So on my Ohio deer, it was the same ordeal. Now I know that you can kill, a deer with a field point if you hit it in the right place. Obviously, practice and shot placement is one thing that we always want to stress. And I know that if you hit a deer in the right spot every single time, you can kill it with any broadhead. I just want to go over this just because of the simple fact of how quick the deer expired and the blood trail and the performance of the broadhead after that. So my Ohio deer, he come up, same story. Come in front of me, 18 yards. I hit him right behind the shoulder, in the pocket, perfect shot. The arrow blew through him again, and it come out the front of his chest right here. So he was quartered away from me, put it in, entered behind the right shoulder, and come out in front of the left shoulder, buried in the dirt 4 inches. The buck run up and made a loop and stood there again 30 yards. I ranged it with a rangefinder 30 yards away from where I had shot him, initial impact, and I got it on film of him tipping over. And where we go again is on the blood trail on this deer. I had somebody else with me, my buddy that invited me up there, and he said, "Oh my God, Termite, look at the blood on that tree." And it looked like someone took a red paint bucket and just splashed red all up and down a tree. It was blowing out either side of him. It was crazy. The broadhead even going through him, going through the dirt. Blades were perfectly fine. No warp in them. They were a little bit duller, but they went through a deer and they went into the dirt, but they were still pretty sharp. So the farthest that I've had a deer come in front, pass away in front of me was 100 yards. There you have it. There's my 1-year review on the G5 dead meats. I'm going to use this broadhead next year too, and I'm probably going to stick with this broadhead. I am not sponsored by a broadhead company or G5 by any way, shape, form, anything of that nature. And these are my favorite broadheads. I can't say enough about them. So I hope you guys liked the review. Merry Christmas to everybody. I hope everybody's having a wonderful Christmas. And if you have any questions, any comments, leave it in the comment section. I'll try to get to everybody. If you have any questions for me. If you're a first-time viewer, don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button. We'll have more content coming out here in the upcoming weeks. And I just hope everybody has a wonderful day. I'll see you guys. Y'all take care.